Fascinated with the Indian landscape and architecture, the University of Western Australian students made a trip recently to the country to study landscape and architecture. Prashant Awasthi caught up with them in the capital to understand the faculties that they use to understand the subject better.
Australian students showcased the landscape and architectural design at an exhibition in the capital city. This gave a new dimension to the landscape of Australian High Commission in the capital. Professor Christopher from Western Australian University said that the student design was similar to the 600 years ago Mughal era.
What this exhibition is about is that last September the students came, and at the Australian High Commission here in New Delhi they had constructed a new building. However, the garden surrounds or the landscape around it was just grass and trees, and no one had really thought about it. And so I asked my students, I said, well, if embassies traditionally they use architecture to say something about the country. So if you were at the Chinese embassy in Australia, the Chinese embassy would look like a pagoda, or it would attempt to look Chinese. So I said, let's do something similar, only we're using gardens and a landscape rather than the buildings. And so my students tried to design something that on one hand responded to 600 or 700 years of Mughal garden designs.
The exhibition was organized by the School of Planning and Architecture in collaboration with Australian High Commission. Professor Christopher said that the students had made their design keeping both Indian and Australian landscape and themes in mind.
The outcome was that each of the students designed a garden surrounds for this new building. And for those surrounds it did two things. One was, it was all very symbolic. It talked about how their gardens represented Australia, but they were also Indian, and then they also had to be functional in the sense that if you were at the embassy, how did you want to use the gardens? Did you want to have a citizenship ceremony there? Was there a use? So that was the outcome. Each student designed a garden.
Australian Deputy High Commissioner to India said that for the Australian student it was a totally different experience to know about Indian society, culture and urban landscape.
So coming to India was a totally new experience. It exposed them to a different society and a different cultural landscape, a different urban landscape, and so that meant that they were able to see it firsthand, the challenges and issues, styles, tastes of another culture.
He added that this will build strong relations with India and is looking forward to interactive programs such as these. From Delhi, Prashant Awasthi with Surendra Roka for Real Estate Television.